what we're going to do is we're going to add a variable. We're actually going to add a couple variables, a couple different example variables. This is a good way to have kind of like a light intro to programming. So this is really like a computer programming concept. But really what we're doing is we're just saving some type of information so that we can make choices later on. And so we're going to do two quick examples of that. And we'll go from there. So this is another thing where it's not something that you have to use in the project, but it's something that could be really useful depending on what type of story you want to tell. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a variable to save just a choice that I made. And so I'm going to set up an example for this. This is maybe not necessarily exactly how I would tell the story, but I'm going to design it in a way that kind of makes it useful to have this variable. So in the beginning of my story, I have this choice to eat either a cereal or muffin. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another sort of choice, which is just to not eat the thing and just continue, and then I'm going to end up in the same place. And I'll show you why that's useful. So I'm just going to make a couple changes here. I'm going to leave Magic Spider here. I'm just going to kind of have that be go somewhere else for now. But I'm going to add a couple other options in here just for this example. So what I'm going to say is you eat the cereal anyway, or you run out of the house. Okay, so where'd my thing go? So if I eat the cereal anyway, what I'm gonna do is just flag that I ate the cereal, and if I run out of the house, I'm gonna go to another option. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this into a link. So I'm just gonna put eat the cereal anyway. And then there's another way to create links besides the one that I showed last time, which is just the brackets. If I want to go to a specific page, I'm going to just make a separate page here called eat, and then close that. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to say you run out of the house, and I'm going to make a little link to run. So you run out of the house, that's going to go to run. Or you eat, that's going to go to eat. Okay, so here's the eat option. Here's the run option. I'm going to leave this go outside down here for a second. So just ignore those for right now because I just want to do this example. Okay, so I'm going to have my muffin have these same options. Okay, so I'm going to go to the muffin and I'm going to go up here. I actually have you eat the cereal or go outside. So I already have these options built in actually, so that's kind of good. So I'm gonna go to eat and I'm gonna send this to eat. And then I'm gonna have go outside, go to run. Okay, so you can see now I have these two options that go in both of these directions. And both of these options are going to converge on the next sort of moment in the story, which is we're outside and either we've eaten or not. And so the thing that this is useful for is when I get to this next part of the story, if I have eaten, I want to give the user an option. If I haven't eaten, I want to give the user a different option. The reason that this is useful here is because there's two paths that could result in either way. So to do this just with the branching nodes, I'd need twice as many nodes. I'd need cereal plus eat, cereal plus run, and then I would need muffin plus eat, muffin plus run. So I'd need to make 4 separate tiles to capture all of those possibilities. But if I use a variable, I can capture all of those possibilities just with the 2 tiles. Yeah.
Is there a way to let's say you want to have run but with a slightly different variation as an outcome, right? So you have the same text as run.
Yeah.
But you have a new option because they took one of the other ones, right? Or mix and match. Is there any way to copy run and duplicate it without having to retype out the entire thing?
The tile? There probably is. Let me see.
Because I was trying to figure out how to do that and I couldn't.
Let me see if there's like a duplicate. Let me just Google Twine duplicate passage. I'm not sure what I would do if I wanted to do that. There probably is a way to do this, but what you could just do is just copy this whole thing and paste it into a new tile. There's probably a way to do that. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
And if nothing comes up when I right click, so you could also export it and duplicate it in your text editor, but that might lead to some bugs. Okay. So what we're gonna do is if we go to eat, we're gonna save a variable that says we've eaten. If we go to run, we're gonna save a variable that says we haven't eaten. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna mean that when we get to this other passage, we'll be able to handle both of those outcomes in one passage. Okay, so in eat, I'm gonna open this up and I'm gonna say, you eat the cereal and head to, where are we gonna go next? Let's say the bus stop. And I'm gonna just put bus stop in some brackets, so that'll become a link. And we're gonna save it there. Thank you. Okay, so now we've got bus stop here. And now I'm gonna go to run. I'm gonna say, you run away from the cereal and head to the bus stop. So these are gonna go to the same place, but there's gonna be options here. And the way that we can do that is by using a variable. So there's lots of different ways to approach different problems when it comes to setting up a story like this. This isn't the only way to necessarily approach this, but this makes things simpler because instead of having lots of tiles that kind of like branch outwards, now I can just save a state and then have the tiles deal with that state. Okay, so to set a variable, I'm gonna use a macro. A macro is sort of like inputting a little bit of a program inside of my Twine setup. So to do that, you can really do this wherever you want. I usually do this at the top of the page. And there's a menu here to add macros. Oh, that's a comment. I'm gonna get rid of that for a second. There's a menu here to add macros. So you can add them in there. You can list macros. So you can see basics, set, da-da-da-da-da. But you can also just type them out. You don't have to use the macro button, but you can. So if I wanna set a variable in Twine, what I do is I say set, and it'll also kind of like hint, if it thinks I'm writing some code, it'll hint to me what I wanna do. So I'll say set, and then it also has some like little instructions after I do that. So if I say set, it'll kind of like tell me what to do. So it says, this is a call to the set macro, it produces a command, da-da-da-da. So set variable to value, da-da-da. Okay, so we are gonna say set. When we make a variable in Twine, we put a $sign before the variable name. I don't really know why exactly they use this. It's sort of like PHP, but that's how they do it. So I'm gonna make a variable called did eat cereal. When you're naming a variable, the convention is to use all lowercase letters and to use underscores instead of spaces. Because when we have variables, we can't use spaces because it would start a new part of the program. This is called snake case because it's kind of like a little snake. Different programming languages have different ways of doing this. So we're gonna set did eat cereal to true. Okay, so true is a default value here that, oh, maybe it's capital true. No, it should highlight. Let me just make sure Twine variable true. Maybe I'll just use a string if I can. Oh no, it says true. Okay, well that's AI. You can't trust AI. Okay, I'm just gonna see if it works because I think that's what it should look like. So we're gonna say set did eat cereal to true, and then on the other tile I'm gonna set it to false. So I'm gonna go to run. I'm gonna do the same thing, but here I'm gonna say set did eat cereal to false. Okay. So now when I get to my bus stop tile, I can check if did eat cereal is true or false, and then I can display different information based on that value. So let's go to my bus stop tile, and I can say you reach the bus stop. And then to display different information based on a Boolean value, I can use an if statement. So an if evaluates a choice, if something is true or if it is false. So I can say if, and then I can say did eat cereal. And after this condition, I can put brackets, and anything that's in these brackets will display if I ate the cereal. And then I can do an else, and else anything in these brackets will display if I didn't eat the cereal. So I can give the user different options based on that value. So again, you could do this using a lot of tiles, but if you want to kind of simplify the overall number of tiles you have, if you're going to the same places, this is a way to do that. So if I ate the cereal, I can say you are feeling great and are happy to wait for the bus. It arrives and you, let's say, get on bus is the next part of that section. If you didn't eat the cereal, we're going to say you are really hungry and you can't wait anymore, so you run to the corner store. And we'll put brackets on the corner store to turn that into another link. Okay, so now we've got these two options going from the bus stop. If we ate our cereal, we're gonna get on the bus. If we went to the corner store, we're gonna go there. So to test this, we're gonna have to start like over here, because otherwise the variables won't be set. But when we test this, you'll see that our Twine application is showing us these variables. So I'm gonna go to run from here where we have our cereal, and we have these two options. Notice it says no variables down here. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit because I can't actually click on this. So if I eat the cereal anyway, so now it says we have a variable, did eat cereal, and the value is the Boolean value true. So we head to the bus stop, and because we ate the cereal, we see you're feeling great, you're happy to wait for the bus arrives, and you get on the bus. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back. This time I'm gonna run out of the house. Okay, so now we see we have this did eat cereal variable, and it's set to false. And so now when we go to the bus stop, we see the other option. You're really hungry, you can't wait, so you go to the corner store. So this is kind of a way of saving choices that happen earlier in the story to affect things that we show later in the story. And this is something that is basically very common in any video game, whether we're saving this choice of whether we ate the cereal or saving, like, you know, how many points you have, how many enemies did you defeat, all of these different things that happen in a video game. Variables are a way of saving these states so that we could remember them later. So we're going to do another quick example that's just kind of showing a different type of variable. It's going to be a little bit goofier, but we're just going to use it as an example. Okay, so let's open the muffin one again. So I'm going to change this one a little bit. Instead of the muffin box being empty, I'm going to see you eat a muffin, but you're still hungry, so then you want to eat the cereal. So I'm just going to modify the story a little bit just to make sense for this part of the demo. Okay, so I'm going to say you see a whole box of muffins. You eat a muffin, but you're still hungry. Okay, you eat a muffin. Wait, how do I want to set this up? What I want to do is that when you eat a muffin, it goes back to the muffin thing. I got to think through the logic of this. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to say you eat. Oh, no, this is what we'll do. We'll say you eat a muffin, but we're gonna put this inside of a variable. This is actually way more complicated than I thought it was, but I think it's gonna make sense. Okay, so we're gonna first establish that there's a number of muffins that we've eaten. So to do this, I actually need to set this variable earlier in my program, because if I set it in this passage, every time I load the passage, it's just gonna reset. So I don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna go back to my starting point. And your starting point is actually a good place to put a lot of your variables, because you might wanna set up your variables before you get started. So at my starting point, I'm gonna create a new variable, and I'm gonna say number muffins eaten. When we make variables, it doesn't really matter what you call them, but you just want it to name it something that makes it clear like what it's supposed to be for. And I'm gonna set it to 0. So some variables are just Booleans, they're true or false, that's like a choice. But some variables are numbers, they're things that like we can count. There's a lot of other variables, but these are some of the two basics that we'll start with. So when we start our program, we're gonna have this number muffins eaten variable. Or actually, let's call this muffins eaten count is 0. That's a little bit better in terms of explaining what we're talking about. So our muffin eaten count starts at 0. Whoops. So now when we go to muffins, when we get to the muffin page, we will say, depending on whether we've eaten a muffin already, we'll do different stuff. So we'll say if muffins eaten count is greater than or is 0. So if the number of muffins we've eaten is 0, that means we're like at the beginning of our program. What we'll do is we'll say you eat a muffin. And then we're gonna link this text to the muffin itself. So every time that we eat a muffin, we're just gonna come back here. So we're gonna say you eat a muffin, and we're gonna link that to muffin. Uh-oh, why isn't it linking to itself? There we go. Okay, that's actually, so I had a little space after the arrow, which is why that link didn't work. You can't have a space in your link name, because it'll think that you're looking for a passage that starts with a space. Okay, so we need to arrow straight to muffin. Okay, so if the muffin count is 0, you eat a muffin, and we go back to the beginning. So we're gonna, if this happens, we're gonna set our muffins eaten count is 1. So we've eaten 1 muffin. So then this is going to get a little bit more complex. We're going to say else if, or actually no, we can just say else here. We don't need an else if. So we're going to say else. So else, if we have eaten a muffin already, we'll have the option to eat another muffin. And if we do that, we'll just do the same thing again. So eat another muffin. This clicks to muffin. Oh, it did it again. Why is that? Oh, because I have a parentheses here. Whoops. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to set our muffins count. This time we're going to keep counting up, so we'll say muffins eaten count is muffins eaten count plus 1. So we'll just add 1 each time we eat the muffins. And we can also display that data. So we can say you have eaten muffins eaten count muffins. Okay. And I think I need to put this set. No, I think that's fine actually. I don't think the order really matters here. Okay, so let's test from here. I think I might have made some mistakes. Oh yeah. the macro's first value is set to false. Okay, so I think, wait, what? This is because I haven't set the variable yet. So I need to start from the starting point for this to work. Oh, no? Okay, I did something weird. Okay, so maybe I need equals. Okay, sorry, 1 equals. Sorry, I've got like different programming languages in my head. Let's just look this up. Twine set variable to number. Set var to. Okay. Okay, so now this is working. I don't know why it wasn't working before. Okay, so muffins eaten count is number 0. Okay. Oh, it's 2. Muffins eaten count to 0, not is 0. Okay. So then when we get here, we're going to have to say muffin eat count to 1. Muffin eaten count, I think, equals 0. 2. Okay. So I guess 2 is for nope. Okay. All right, Twine test number. Twine if number is okay. So this should be is. All right, let's try that again. Okay, so eat a muffin. Okay, so we see a whole box of muffins. We eat a muffin. So if we eat a muffin, now we see you've eaten 2 muffins. We can eat another muffin. And every time I eat a muffin, we're going to see that count go up. So that doesn't really do anything, but it's just a way of demonstrating how we can use different types of values. So Booleans are good for single choices, if else. Numbers are good for anything that we need to count. So you could imagine a story where you need like 10 coins to buy a magic wand or something like that. This is a way that we can actually count that you've gotten those coins. So just to review really quickly, so we need to create the variable first. So we do that at our starting point. We set muffins eaten count to 0. So for numbers, we use 2 rather than is. Then on our muffins page, we can still test. We can say if muffins eaten count is 0, we give the user the ability to eat a muffin, and we set that to 1. Then if we eat the muffin, we just go back to the same page, and we can continue eating muffins, but eventually we have to leave. So we're going to change the end of the story to say you are still hungry. You can eat cereal or go outside. Okay. So one more time, let's test it. So you see a whole box of muffins, you eat a muffin. You've eaten 2 muffins, so we keep eating muffins, but eventually it says you're still hungry. We can go eat cereal, and then we go through our cereal part. Okay. So again, variables are a good way to save information that can help you change the story later on. So there's not always like, when you use a variable, sometimes it's not easy to identify when you want to use a variable. A couple things to watch out for. If you have like a bunch of different tiles that have the same text in them, but are dealing with different situations. So for example, if you have a similar structure where you end up at the bus stop, but in some cases you've done something, in some cases you haven't. So you have like 5 bus stops and it's the same text, but they go to different places. That's a good example of when you might need a variable. So if you find yourself making copies of the exact same text to do the same thing, but with a slightly different option, that you probably need a variable. Another context is if you're counting anything. If there's anything that you want to count and any kind of like resource that the player can like acquire, then that's another case where you need a variable. If you're just making like a simple decision between 2 choices, you probably don't need a variable. But if you want to save a decision that a user makes early on in the story to bring back much later, that's another case where you want to use a variable. So again, if you're not really sure, we can talk about it. It's just a good thing to be able to do. But if you're not sure, just let me know. We could discuss whether it's something that you might want to use in your story. All right, so I'm going to stop here. We have some more time for workshop time. So if you have any issues, we can troubleshoot. If you have any questions or you just want feedback on what you're working on, let me know, and I'll be happy to help out. And yeah, remember the blog post is just updating your progress. So take more screenshots of your story, try to finalize your concept. And you can try to update your blog before you leave, but it's not due until class, which we don't have next week. We have in 2 weeks. So the due date for this blog post is before class 2 weeks from now. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.